So at this time, I was just kicked out of college. I come back home. There's no football, there's no school. I'm trying to decide what's next in my life, right? So here is the thing. The crazy thing is, I didn't think I made the decision, but no decision is a decision in itself, right? So here's a view into my life. 19, 20-year-old Nick Krem. Here's what I decided to do, right? I decided to just work jobs enough to go out party all week. I probably would lose the job, get a new job, work some odd hours, go out and party again. All I was doing was staying on different people's couches. I was barely home. I'd probably be home for maybe a couple days a week, go out and party on other people's couches, sleep where I could sleep, go out all night, try and draw out everything else, right? I was trying to forget what I was doing, and all I was doing, I was living a 0-100 life. Zero accountability and 100% excuses. Everyone would ask, what happened at school? What happened to all this? Oh, it's not for me. School was stupid. I didn't care enough about football. And I would tell these lies and excuses so much to a point where I almost started to believe them, right? So picture this, going out all the time. All I was trying to do was keep surrounding myself with people. Why? Because I didn't want to be left alone up here. Because I knew I had to face some things. And I didn't want to face them. So what was the easiest way to do that? Surround myself with a lot of different people. So that way I could keep telling excuses, keep distracting myself from the reality of, I don't know what I'm gonna do next. I don't know where I'm going. I messed up something I loved. That was the biggest thing. I couldn't admit to myself that I gave up on something I loved. So I kept trying to distract myself along the way. You know the biggest thing that I feared? I feared the drives home. It could be like a 20-minute drive home or a 30-minute drive home. But during that time, I was left alone in the car by myself, thinking about, why am I doing this? What am I accomplishing? What am I running away from? Why can't I go home confidently and spend time around my family? Why am I staying out all these nights? What are these excuses that I keep telling myself? And I was so scared of those drives home because I did not want to face it. So these next 2-3 years of my life, it was just constant trying to surround myself with as many people as possible so I didn't have to face what was up here. Even when I was home, I wouldn't try and stay in my room. I would try and keep distracting myself with family, kept trying to have other people, other things around me to distract myself and keep telling these excuses and lies because I didn't want to face what was up here. So when I would go out, my buddy Rich would know this better than anyone, right? Because I would go out and I would tell people my name's Kevin. I would make up these crazy stories about who Kevin is, what I'm doing. And you know, I thought it was hilarious because at some point in the nights, people would come up and be like, hey, Kevin. And everyone would look around like, who's Kevin? And I would stand up, right? Because obviously my name's not Kevin. But here was the reality of it. When I looked back on this years later, I really dissected what was the psychology of me doing this. And it was, I was ashamed of who I was. And I didn't want to tell people who I really was, what really happened. So I'd make up this character, this facade of who I was. I looked at it as a game, but in reality, I didn't. I'll tell you what, no matter if I'm going out now, I am proud to say who I am, Nick Krem. I'll say that every time with a smile on my face. But at the time, this Kevin character was made up because I thought it was funny and I would convince myself that it was this joke. But in reality, I was too ashamed to say who I was, what I was really doing. So I made up this Kelvin character and it went on for years, really. And in reality, I wasn't confident to say who I was, what I'm doing, what I've been going through, because I did not face it yet. I wasn't able to admit to myself what I did and take full accountability for where I was at in my life. So I made up this character, and that's something that I was doing during that time. So for me, and if you know me now, and especially if my family's watched this, you know we had a huge family. Family events happen almost every weekend during the week. My mom had 13 brothers and sisters. We have over 40 first cousins. I'm like the 6th oldest out of all the cousins. So there's constantly things going on. So why did I stop going to them when I loved going to them so much? At the time, I thought people looked at me differently because I stopped playing football. I wasn't going to school. You know, I was this great football star coming out of high school. I was gonna do these great things. People knew I was smart. People knew I could go through school. So here was this kid who dropped out, not doing anything, and I thought people were looking at me differently, treating me differently, even saying things about me. But that was the farthest thing from the truth. My family was so supportive through all this. What it was my insecurities getting projected out onto them. So I want to go to family parties because in reality, I wasn't comfortable with who I was, the decisions I was making, and I blamed them. I blamed them for my faults because, again, at that time, I wasn't taking accountability. It was 0 100. I was making up all these excuses. I stopped going to school because, I didn't love school. I didn't love football, so I stopped doing that. It was too hard. They pushed me too much. I stopped going to family parties because, they're all against me. They don't get it. And that was so far from the truth. They were all so supportive. They all just wanted to see me, see what I'm doing. And I was too scared to tell them what I was actually doing because I was still running. I was running away from everything I was doing. I was running away from the responsibility. I was running away from the accountability. I was scared when in reality that was the one thing that could save me, is the accountability. But I wasn't ready to face it yet. I wasn't ready for that yet. So most people don't know this, but it was one winter evening. It was like the last snow of the year. The last snow of the year. And I'm out there, I'm doing something, I'm trying to make my dad happy, right? Because I'm living on his couch, it was about 3 years in at this point, living on his couch, not having a position, not having a job, not having an outlook, really not doing anything. I don't know how my dad put up with me for that long. Because, if you know me, I'm also a talker too. So you're going to hear me talk and you're not doing anything living on the couch. What are you doing, son, right? So I'm out there trying to make him happy. And I should have been doing this before too. So I'm out there, with the snowblower, right? Doing the driveway. It's one of the last snows of the year. I got to the end of the driveway. There's like 2 more rows left to do. And the snowblower got jammed. So I decided to, turn it off. I think I smoked like half a cigarette at the time. I turned it off, let it sit because, I thought I was being responsible. If the snowblower's off, it can't turn anymore. So then, it sounds stupid when I say it, but I stuck my hand in the snowblower chute to move the piece of ice, but it was turned off, right? But when I stuck my hand in to remove the ice, it still had 1 more rotation left. What ended up happening was, if you guys can see here, the tip of my finger is now gone because of that. So that's a constant reminder not to do that, and it reminds me of other things, right? So the tip of my finger's off. I had to go to the hospital. They rushed me in. It was a crazy situation because I had to drive myself to the nearest hospital, and I sat there for 35 minutes in the waiting room. And when my dad finally came, they're like, "Sir, can you sign this consent form?" I was 19. I could have signed it right away. But anyways, and then I waited in that hospital for another 30 minutes before they said I had to go downtown to actually get it looked at. So now we're about 2 hours in by the time I get downtown and it's getting looked at. We couldn't reattach it because there wasn't enough bone. It's like, screw it, just sew it up. But here's what happened. And here's why this was such a big turning point for me, right? Up until this point, I'm going out all the time, this little drama with everybody going on. That was like my life. I was so enthralled by it, right? But then all of a sudden, for about 2 or 3 months, I had to be inside. I couldn't go out. I'm healing my finger. Man, nobody came over. None of all these friends that I thought were my friends came over, really checked on me, wasn't really reaching out, seeing how I'm doing. All of a sudden, all these people I thought were like my best friends would be there. Nobody's reaching out, nobody's coming over, nobody's hanging out. I won't say nobody. My buddy Mario, shout out Mario, would always come over. My buddy Walsh would come over. But besides that, almost nobody else was coming over. So I'm sitting there, I'm trying to say like, oh, but they have things going on, right? So I'm still making up excuses for it. I'll never forget, I'm finally able to go out again. I even pushed the envelope on that a little bit too. I shouldn't have been going out, but I'm like, screw it. I'm still gonna go out. I'll never forget going over to my one buddy's place. Finally able to go out, get back in the action. I'm sitting on the couch, and they come in all hyper, and they're telling me about what I missed, and there was this little fight that happened and all this drama. I'll never forget the feeling of sitting on that couch after being out of it for 3 months, being disconnected, no one coming to see me. And I'm sitting on this couch, and they're telling me all this drama and things happening, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I don't give one flying F about any of this. none of this is important. And I'm hearing them go on, smiling, talking about all these crazy events, fights, people going out these crazy nights. And I'm like, I don't care anymore. It just didn't motivate me. And I just looked at it from the outside perspective, out of being out of it for so long. I was like, I want more. I want more out of life. I can't keep doing this. This doesn't excite me. This is a distraction. And at that moment, I knew it was a distraction that I was using. I still wasn't able to identify what it was distracting me from, but I knew it was a distraction. So that's when I stopped going out. I started looking. I started searching. I started looking for a real job. I started looking for a real position, right? And at this time, this is when my dad, he's also kind of putting the click down on me too. You know, fingers gone. Obviously, I'm not doing the best things. I'm staying out for sometime a week at a time, not knowing where I was. So after 3 years, he's finally like, dude, you gotta get a job. You gotta do something. And if you think about it, 3 years, he was he had way more time than I hope I have for my son, but he spent a lot of time trying to push me in the right direction. And finally, he's like, all right, gotta get a job. So that's when I started looking. That's when I started looking for sales jobs. Getting into what was a big change for me, right? What was a big change? And you know, why sales? People ask me that a lot. And the truth was, I never, ever saw myself as a salesman. You might call me crazy because, you know, I can talk to people. Like, if you knew me now, you'd be like, why in the heck would you never think sales? But at the time, nobody in my family was ever really in sales, ever really in the business type world. I wouldn't say like people in my family were like in the business mantra. And I never really thought about sales before either. But there was one person, Anthony Tanko. I know you got Facebook now, so you're probably watching it. You might watch this. But Anthony Tanko, I'll never forget this. I was about 17 years old, 16 years old. I picked up my buddy and he said, you know, Nick, you should go into sales. I'm like, no, I'll never do that. He's like, dude, you're a great talker. You'd be great at it. You should go into sales. And that one conversation stuck in my head. So as I'm finally sitting there and I'm sitting there, I'm ready to take my new position. I'm ready to start looking for the next step in my life. I want to do something. I started looking for sales jobs, right? Got about 3 or 4 interviews. They all shut me down right away because I didn't have any experience. 20 years old, 20, 21 years old, didn't have any experience. Didn't really have, I wasn't as confident as I was coming into it. So they all shut me down right away. And you know, it was funny because I still wasn't fully sold on a sales position because I didn't really know what it was, but I knew I wanted to do something. But that one conversation with my buddy Tanko, I kept just running in my head over and over, man, this is something to be good at. And I was trying to find something I'll be good at, trying to find something I love. And that conversation kept running in my head, so I didn't give up. I kept looking, I kept searching because I was ready, I was searching. I still didn't own to the accountability of everything before, but I knew I wanted something more. So I continued looking for sales jobs. So at this time, like I said, I was looking for sales jobs. Couldn't find one. Nobody's hiring me. And then I'm like, my dad's like, dude, you gotta do something. So I got a job at a warehouse. My uncle actually, shout out to my Uncle Jim, actually hooked me up. I was going to start on Monday, right? But I knew in my mind, I'm like, this isn't for me. And I know if I go to this job, I'm like, dude, I'm never gonna get out of it because it'll be 9 to 5, working so much. You get benefits, all this. I'm like, this is it. But I knew in my heart, it's not what I wanted to do. So on Sunday, the day before I'm supposed to start this job, my cousin's husband calls me, Matt Milia. Whew, thank you, Matt. My cousin's husband calls me that Sunday, the night before I'm about to start my position. And he says, hey, he called my brother, and I just want to rewind. At this point, I wasn't close with my brother Michael like I am now whatsoever. But I just happened to call Mike because he was in sales. He's living in North Carolina. I said, I'm looking for a sales job. What do you think I should look into? He's trying to give me some options, but nobody's hiring me. And then my cousin Matt actually called my brother first. And he's like, you know what? Nick's actually looking for a sales job. So then Matt calls me that Sunday. I'm sitting in a parking lot, and then I'm just thinking in my head, like, dude, this is not what I want to do. I can't go to a warehouse. I can't do this. My cousin Matt calls me. He's like, hey, I think I have a position for you. It's in sales. I'm like, done. I'll come over there tonight. I'll come over there right now. I told my buddy to drop me off. I got to go here. I just knew like there was something in my heart. I'm like, this is it. This is what I need to do. So I stopped what I'm doing. I go over there. I was over there. It's about 10 o'clock at night. The night before I'm supposed to start this job, right? And I go back home and I tell my parents this, right? And didn't go exactly how I planned. But I also knew it wasn't gonna be completely favorable because, I'm about to start this stable position finally. 9 to 5, good benefits, start working. Tell my dad this, and I just want a prerequisite with this where keep in mind, for the last 3 years, this is not the Nick Krem you see today. This was the guy who was going out partying, not keeping a job, not keeping anything stable. This position I'm being offered right now is not stable. There's no guarantees. The pay is a lot lower. There's no benefits. So I come home saying, hey, I'm gonna take this job and I'm not going to the warehouse job. And he said, well, you can either take this warehouse job, or you can get out. And it was the first time in my life I was able to actually stand up and look at my dad in the eyes and say, then I have to get out. And I grabbed some things. I ended up living with my buddy Rich, who, shout out to my buddy Rich, on a dime. He said I could come stay with him. I was actually really closer to the office too. But that really made me commit to this as well. Where if I would have stayed at home, I might have been a little more cushy that I'm able to do this and go. I committed on the spot. It was the first time in my life where I just felt like I was doing the right thing. And I was fully committed. I was able to stand up and say that I have to get out. I was able to do this. And I know my dad will probably watch this too, by no means. He should have kicked me out years ago. I should have been out of that house, honestly. Like with what I was doing, partying all the time, not having a job, I'm surprised I lasted there that long. So, again, he should have kicked me out a long ago. So by no means am I saying anything bad about that, but the fact was, it was the steady job versus this thing that just popped up out of nowhere that has no benefits, no guarantees. What are you doing? You're going right back to what you were doing before. But I knew in here that this is exactly what I wanted to do. There was a reason he called me that night. So that's how I got out of the funk. Again, I didn't address everything yet. I didn't own up to all my excuses I was driving before, but I knew I was ready for something better. I was ready. When I was ready, the right position found me. So what happens next is I'm gonna walk you guys through what did it look like starting as a caller, calling 15 hours a day. What did it look like for me when I finally started this sales job, started the next chapter of my life? I'm kicked out of the house at this point, so I'm living on my buddy's couch, going to work, working my ass off. What happens next? So I'm excited to talk about this. Stay tuned next week for chapter 3. We'll get back to you.